You're listening to the Chapter a Day Bible Study. I'm John Stange, and today we're in Genesis 50. Joseph's trials have had a purpose. Genesis 50 brings the story of Joseph to its final chapter, and it does so by focusing on death, forgiveness, and hope that stretches beyond a single lifetime. This chapter doesn't rush to wrap things up. Instead, it slows the reader down and shows how God's promises outlast fear, regret, and even the grave. The chapter opens with Joseph mourning the death of his father. In verse 1 we read, "Then Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him." Scripture doesn't hide Joseph's grief. This is the same man who had endured betrayal, slavery, and prison, and yet here he is openly brokenhearted. Faith doesn't erase sorrow, but it does give sorrow a place to be carried honestly before God. Jacob's burial follows, and it's described in careful detail. Joseph honors his father's request to be buried in the land of promise. This matters because Jacob's hope wasn't in Egypt's security or prosperity. His confidence rested in what God had promised to Abraham, Isaac, and himself. Even in death, Jacob's life pointed forward. The book of Hebrews later reflects on this moment, noting that Jacob was looking ahead to what God would still do for his descendants. Genesis 50 reminds us that God's people live with a future-focused faith, even when circumstances suggest settling for less. After the burial, the narrative shifts to Joseph's brothers, and fear starts to resurface. With their father gone, they assume Joseph will finally seek revenge. Their message to him reveals their anxiety and their lingering guilt. They plead for mercy, and Joseph responds with one of the most powerful statements in all of Scripture. In verse 19, he says this, "Do not fear, for am I in the place of God?" Joseph refuses to claim a role that belongs only to the Lord. Judgment isn't his to dispense. Then comes the verse that defines the entire story. In verse 20, Joseph says this, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today." Joseph doesn't minimize the harm done to him. He names it as evil. At the same time, he recognizes that God was actively at work through every painful chapter. God's sovereignty didn't excuse his brother's sin, but it overruled it for a greater purpose. Joseph's words offer more than reassurance. They reveal a gospel-shaped view of life. God takes what humans twist for harm and uses it to accomplish redemption. This theme runs throughout Scripture and finds its ultimate fulfillment in Jesus. The cross stands as the clearest example. Humanity meant the crucifixion of Christ for evil. God meant it for good, for the salvation of many. Acts chapter 2, verse 23 captures this tension when Peter says Jesus was delivered up by human hands according to God's definite plan and foreknowledge. The same type of theme we see right here in the book of Genesis. Now, coming back to Joseph, Joseph doesn't just forgive with words, he backs it up with action. In verse 21 it says, "So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them." He provides for his brothers and their families, choosing care over control. Forgiveness here isn't a passive thing. It's active, it's costly, and it's ongoing. Joseph reflects the heart of Christ. Christ who didn't merely declare forgiveness from a distance, but entered into our need and bore the cost himself. The chapter closes with Joseph's death. But again, hope takes center stage. Before he dies, Joseph makes the people swear to carry his bones out of Egypt when God visits them. Verse 25, he says, "God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here." Joseph believed God's promise so fully that he planned for it centuries in advance. His faith looked beyond his own lifetime toward God's future deliverance. That deliverance would come in the Exodus, when God brought Israel out of slavery. Later still, it would come in a greater way through Jesus, who leads his people out of bondage to sin and death. Joseph's unburied bones remind us that God's plans are never rushed and never forgotten. What God promises, He completes. Genesis ends in a coffin in Egypt, but it doesn't end in despair. It ends with expectation. The story pauses, but God's redemptive work continues. In many ways, that's where we live today. We look back at what God has already done through Christ, and we look forward to the day when every promise is fully realized. Genesis 50 invites us to trust God with the full story of our lives. It calls us to release the right to revenge, to believe that God is at work even when others intend harm, and to live with confidence in what God has promised. Like Joseph, we're asked to see our lives through the lens of God's goodness and to rest in the truth that He's always accomplishing more than we can see. Thanks again for listening to today's episode of the Chapter a Day Bible Study. For more resources to help you in your walk with Christ and your understanding of the Bible, please visit my website at BibleStudyHeadquarters.com. And if you'd like to partner with me by becoming a supporter of this ministry, you'll see a few options to do so, again, at BibleStudyHeadquarters.com or in the description of this episode. As always, thank you for your prayers, thank you for your support, and thank you for your willingness to share this content with others. Have a great day, and I'll see you again right here tomorrow.